With great pleasure, we have got Nandana ji, who has agreed to come and do a session with us for an hour with question and answer. And Nandana ji is not a stranger to us anymore. She is has been with us with our Sunday lessons and giving us a lot of uplifting talks and sessions. Nandana ji is initiated into the traditional Vedic Brahmacharya ashramam. She has spent many years in the physical presence of the great spiritual masters in India, immersed in sadhana, seva, and self study. The beauty is that she has been with our Swami, Sri Satya Sai Baba, for 12 years. And before she and with Swami for 12 years, and then when she met Swami Dayananda Saraswati, a traditional teacher of Vedanta, and started studying Vedanta under him. And after completing the course under Swami Dayananda, now she's back in the UK to share her knowledge of the Shastras and Vedanta, mainly Vedic chanting, slogas, and kirtans. Her life is dedicated to bringing the wisdom of Vedanta and the rishis to all spiritual seekers, regardless of background or culture. I hereby welcome Swami Nandanaji to take this session on Ladies' Day and to help us clear our minds, our doubts on certain questions that the ladies do have. Some of the ladies have sent you the questions in advance. So the session is about answering questions, and welcome, Nandanaji. Thank you.
Sai Ram. Sai Ram, thank you for inviting me to speak on such an auspicious occasion, Ladies' Day. And we will just begin with our, I think we had sent the Mahalakshmi Ashtakam.
Yes.
If people have that, it will be nice to chant. And everybody will start with as it's Ladies' Day. And she is the #1 most popular lady in our pantheon of gods, because being the goddess of prosperity, spiritual and material prosperity, but it's nice to chant. So I just put this on 1 minute. Namastestu Mahamaye Shri Pite Surapujite Shankha Chakra Gadahaste Mahalakshmi Namostute Namaste Garurarudhe Kolasura Bhayankari Sarva Papa Hare Devi Mahalakshmi Namostute Sarvajne Sarvavarade Sarvadushta Bhayankari Sarvadukha Hare Devi Mahalakshmi Namostute Siddhi Buddhi Prade Devi Bhukti Mukti Pradayini Mantra Murti Sada Devi Mahalakshmi Namostute Adyantarahite Devi Adya Shakti Maheshwari Yoga Jay Yoga Sambhute Mahalakshmi Namostute Stula Sukshma Maharaudri Mahashakti Mahodare Mahapapa Hare Devi Mahalakshmi Namostute Padmasarasthite Devi Parabrahma Swarupini परमेशी जगन्मातः महालक्ष्मी नमोस्तुते। श्वेतांबरधरे देवी नानालंकारभूषिते जगत्स्थिते जगन्मातः महालक्ष्मी नमोस्तुते। महालक्ष्म्यष्टकं स्तोत्रम् यः पठेत् भक्तिमान् नरः सर्वसिद्धिम् अवाप्नोति राज्यं प्राप्नोति सर्वदा। एककाले पठे नित्यम् महापापविनाशनम् द्विकालं यः पठे नित्यम् धनधान्यसमन्वितः त्रिकालं यः पठे नित्यम् महाशत्रुविनाशनम् महालक्ष्मीर्भवे नित्यम् प्रसन्ना वरदा शुभा। महालक्ष्मीर्भवे नित्यम् प्रसन्ना वरदा शुभा। प्रसन्ना वरदा शुभा। शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ॐ गं गणपतये नमः। ॐ गं गणपतये नमः। ॐ गं गणपतये नमः। ॐ श्री साई सच्चिदानंद विश्वरूपाय नमः। ॐ श्री साई सच्चिदानंद विश्वरूपाय नमः। ॐ श्री साई सच्चिदानंद विश्वरूपाय नमः। Sai Ram. So I just wanted to begin our session with a little snippet from Swami's First Ladies' Day. So the First Ladies' Day was held on 1995. And in that discourse, he just a little snippet from that discourse. He says, on this day, 19th of November is celebrated as Ladies' Day in order to delve into the sacred qualities of women and disseminate them. Women are the repositories of truth and culture. From the ancient times, the feminine aspect of the divine has been worshipped. Study the lives of great women who are models of patience, fortitude, compassion, and sacrifice. I desire that you should take up the reins of leadership and bring peace and prosperity to the world by leading ideal lives. So you can see how Swami has put the woman's role at a very, very high place. Even from the First Ladies' Day, he has talked about the leadership of women. And I think, you know, a lot of the questions that we have got today also about the secondary role of women. And I think there's a misunderstanding and maybe some errors need to be corrected. So the first question I think we'll address is why are women who have their monthly cycle not allowed to go to temples or recite mantras or refrain from doing anything that they are separated and treated as unclean? This is natural and God's creation. Other faiths are treated equal. And this question goes with the second question, so I'll read that also. In temples, women are not allowed to recite mantras by the priests themselves. Why is that? And some websites say that only men can recite the mantras. So we have to understand that this is a very, very common question that is asked, why women are not allowed to chant mantras. So first of all, we have to say it is a traditional outlook. This outlook is a very traditional outlook. In fact, the reason in our Shastra, given in the Shastra, is nothing to do with punishing women or seeing women as something inferior, something lower, something unclean. The main reason given in our Shastra is compassion for the lady, because the lady has to work very hard during the week. In those days, the role bringing up the children, cooking, cleaning, no help was given. I mean, even in this country, no help is given. But in India, nowadays, you can get servants and people to help with housework. But in those days as well, the women were the foundation of the house, of the home. So there was a lot to do there. And then during this particular menstruation time, out of compassion for her, the Shastra has said that she should take rest for a few days, at least 3-4 days. That is the main reason. And it has been distorted and throughout the ages, it has been shown that the woman is unclean. It is actually not to do with the cleanliness of the women. It is to give the woman a rest from that work. Now, these Vedic mantras and all of these require great effort and energy to chant. You may have known, when you hear the Vedic chanting and everything, it is not easy to chant. Again, out of compassion, Shastra has said that during this particular time, it is best not to overexert and chant because it is not good on the physical body. So to protect the physical aspect of the lady, Shastra has certain scriptures have said it is good to take rest. Now, it has been mistranslated, misinterpreted as women should refrain from doing something because they are treated as unclean. That is a misunderstanding that has happened throughout the ages. The mantras also, second reason is that many of the Vedic mantras go with the thread ceremony. So when the Upaneyanam function, when the boy especially is initiated, maybe around 10, 12, generally they're initiated into Gayatri Mantra and the eligibility to chant and study Veda. So Veda Adhyanam, they receive the eligibility to study that. From that, the mantras are chanted. So this, in today's day and age, is not available for a woman. Again, as I say, I'm going to explain this day and age. Again, I say this day and age because in the Rig Veda, in the Veda, original Veda, women were entitled to receive the sacred thread. There were many Rishikas, they're called Rishikas, Brahmavadinis, who taught Veda, mentioned specifically in the Rig Veda, which is the oldest text for, not just for India, it is oldest text for mankind. It is the oldest scripture known to whole of humanity. And in that text itself, there are many, many suktams, many prayers, which are specifically for women and specifically composed by women. So there is this misconception that women had no right to chant Vedas, because if the oldest text, the Veda itself, has women chanting, then there is this is not a correct understanding. So these are the main reasons why women were told not to chant during these particular days, because once the thread ceremony is taken, there's a burden of the rituals, meaning you cannot just stop the ritual in between. There are many rituals that you have to continue on a daily basis when you receive the sacred thread. So she has a bigger burden of running the household and taking care of the children and everything. So it was considered in the Dharma Shastra that ladies, it is best if they take rest during this time and they don't chant mantras and all of this, because there was another role envisaged. It is not an inferior role. We'll see how Swami regards it as it's a most superior role to actually bring up the children in the proper way, doing the duties, because you create leaders in society, you create change in society by doing that. But just to also elaborate a little more, in the Dharma Sutra, in the of the Yajurveda, and a commentary of the Yajurveda, these women are specifically mentioned. They're called Brahmavadinis. They choose to dedicate their life to the study and practice and teaching of Vedic knowledge and Brahman, the realization or the discovery of Brahman, the truth. These women are not required to marry and raise children. So there's many of them. The names I will give you, but it's worth studying. Maybe in another session, we can take these women and see what they have taught. Shraddha, Gosha, Surya, Indrani, Urvashi, Juhu, Paulomi, and they're all associated with mantras of the Rig Veda. They composed the mantras of the Rig Veda. One of the most famous Rishikas is the Rishi Patni. She is a wife of a Rishi, Lopa Mudra. You may have heard of her. Her name itself means completely absorbed in the self. And she is put under the category of Brahmavadini and Rishi Patni. And she became the wife of Agastya Muni, who's a great Rishi, Agastya Muni. And 2 mantras of the Rig Veda are attributed to her, in fact. So she actually composed them. So we see like this, we see women in the Veda itself. The role of women is not defined as just, to stay in the house and not chant the mantras or anything. In fact, in the Kena Upanishad, which is one of the oldest Upanishads in the Vedic system, the actual teacher of Brahma Vidya, the teacher of self-knowledge, was Goddess Uma herself. Goddess Uma, Goddess Parvati, appeared in front of Indra and all the gods, the Devatas, and she is the one who taught the self-knowledge to the Devatas, to the gods. So just a few instances I've taken from the Veda itself, which shows the greatness of women throughout the Vedic culture. It has been misunderstood, mistranslated throughout the ages. But these Brahmavadini, Brahmavadini women, they actually took vows of brahmacharya just like men were allowed to take. And they also had the Upanayana Samskara, the thread ceremony, like the boys were allowed to take. So they also got the sacred thread, and they would begin Agnihotra, or the fire sacrifice daily they would do. And the only difference is the austerities that were imposed on the male brahmacharis were not imposed on the female brahmacharis. Even Shastra acknowledged that. So they did not have to go wandering around and taking bhiksha from strangers' homes. So the Shastra, in order to protect, said that they could go for bhiksha, but to take bhiksha from their parents' homes or from their relations, people known to them. So the austerities, that's the only difference. But as I said, they were equally entitled to study the scriptures. And in fact, many of them became teachers. So that is very, very important to understand. I hope that has cleared that doubt about women. And the second question about the women reciting the mantras, in the tradition from when I come as well, there's no prohibition on women chanting Vedic mantras. In fact, my Vedanta teacher, Swami Dayananda Saraswati, not just Swami, our Swami himself has asked us to learn Rudram, asked us to learn one of the greatest Vedic prayers, which, in the Vedas, Sri Rudram. He had never prohibited any women chanting any of the Vedic prayers. We don't see that. So it is, for us, the pramana, or the means of knowledge of knowing what is right to do, is our gurus, who have actually, in this tradition, they have allowed women to chant. And they've said women, they don't have these rules. And we can see this is because it comes in the original text, the Veda, where women were initiated into Vedic mantras. So if there are traditions where you're not allowed to chant, we respect them, we respect, but we can practice our chanting at home. There's no harm to it. And there's no papa karma that will accrue. So that is clear. So the next question is again to do with women. What is the thought view? What is my view and thoughts on the expectations of women in the world? So this question, we live in a man's world. We live in a man's world, predominantly where women have to bear all the burden of life. So for example, if a man is sick or handicapped, the woman's duty is to take care of her husband. Whereas if it is the other way around, then often the man can leave the women, and society is more lenient and forgiving to the man, but won't be for a woman. Similarly, if a woman cannot conceive, society most of the time will justify her husband leaving her. Whereas if it is a man who cannot, then the wife has to accept and take it as a karma. Just like Sita had to prove her purity and do the fire test. Why is it? Why is that? And what do the Shastras say about this, please? So again, we have to see that this is a wrong understanding, not correct understanding. Swami himself, and I've taken some things of Swami's teaching. He says, again in that first Ladies' Days discourse, which is a very beautiful discourse. Please go back and see it, 1995. He says, human beings are considered to be the epitome of creation in this world, which is teeming with millions of beings. In this vast creation, women occupy a very superior position. There are several instances which prove that women are really superior. Swami himself has said this. Why? And he says that later in the discourse, he says, men do not have the same spirit of sacrifice as women. If any problem arises, men come forward with initial enthusiasm, but it is only women who resolutely fight until success is achieved. Now, we have to take this as a broad sense. Of course, it doesn't apply to every woman. It doesn't apply to every man. But Swami has said this, so there must be some truth in it. And that is why it is considered that women, the chance for spiritual realization, spiritual discovery is actually greater in a woman birth than a male birth. Swami himself has said that. So why is this? Because this spirit of sacrifice is very important for the final goal, moksha. Na karmana na prajayadane na tyagene ke amritatvama. How is immortality gained? The verse in the Veda says, what is the way to gain immortality, to gain moksha? It is not through karma, na karmana na prajaya, not through progeny either, progeny or wealth. Na danena, not through wealth, not through progeny, not through actions. How is it gained? Only through tyage neke amritattvamanushu, only through the spirit of sacrifice. And women have this, as Swami said, women have the spirit of sacrifice very naturally. It is there with them. So that is why the Shastra acknowledges a superior role to women in the area of spiritual life as well. There is a greater opportunity for a lady because the quality is there for a woman to actually, for self-discovery. So this is one thing that it says, about women as well, the role of women, because the question is about the role of women. And I don't want to go into the details, the personal details of the question, just to give you an overall, thing about women. Definitely, Shastra says the women's body has drawbacks, the physical body, because women have to go through, the female body has to go through much more suffering than the male body. That is a fact. But the male body also has some weaknesses as well. So every body created in this world has certain plus points and minus points. We cannot say that this is superior and this is inferior. In fact, as I said in the previous time where I did the Q&A, we are not actually male or female. There is no distinction in the Shastra on the spiritual level as male or female, because every being on this planet is considered half male, half female. That is Ardhana Ishvaraha, depicted by Bhagavan that we see. Shiva Shakti, we hear all these, Shiva Shakti. So the right side of a human body is meant to be Shiva, the energy, masculine energy, Shiva. The left side is Shakti. Now, some people have more Shakti than Shiva, some people have more Shiva than Shakti, but both are there in every human being. There is Shiva and Shakti. We only see the external forms. That's a problem. Our vision is only the external. And the external is always talked about. Even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about the external form as a costume. The costume that the real entity wears. Costume is put on by the actor. Who is the actor? Atma is there. Atma is without any male, female sex. Atma is pure consciousness, soul, if you call it like that. And that dons the costume of male or female. So this limitations of all human bodies have to be seen. Everybody will have limitations. So the female body does have limitations, and there are certain duties that are prescribed in the Shastra in keeping with the condition of the body. So a woman cannot just say, I refuse to give birth anymore, let my husband give birth. Can she say that? No, because her role is to bear children. The woman's body is made like that. So this is part of what we have to accept as a facts of life. It is called facts of life, accepting. And a duty is very important. So certain duties fall upon the physical body. It is not on Atma. Atma doesn't have duties, but the physical body has certain duties according to the Shastra. So this is seen as a growth, actually. Then you don't see the limitations of being female or being male. You don't see those limitations when you use everything, use your life to grow spiritually. So all your duties performed in an attitude of offering to Bhagavan. Work is worship. Swami always used to say that. Work is worship. Offer everything to Bhagavan, whatever you have to do, whatever role you have to play. Yes, maybe you have to cook 3 times a day. Yes, but offer that cooking to Bhagavan. You're not cooking really for anybody else. You're cooking for Bhagavan. If that attitude comes into one's life, and then that one grows. So this is very important in our scripture. It's the attitude behind the action that is really responsible for spiritual growth. Everything else is not responsible. So Shastra says, if you keep your goal in mind, your goal is what? Moksha. Your goal, your life goal should be liberation. It should be freedom, to discover that. Then all these, these comparisons with male, female, all of that will drop off, because everything that is given to you, whatever falls into your lap in the form of karma, you will do with the attitude of an offering to the Lord. So it doesn't matter what work you do. Even if you sweep the streets, if you're sweeping with an attitude for the Lord, you are growing spiritually. So it is the attitude that counts. So this is very, I think this question, again, it is, I hope that's answered. And Swami says, again, talking about the women, the role, all the prosperity and the good that we find in this land of Bharat, India, is due to the strength and courage of women of virtue. So Rama's divinity blossomed under Kausalya's loving care. Because of the tender feelings and austerity of Sita, Lava and Kusha achieved fame, name and fame. So it is behind, every strong man, behind every leader, male leader, there is a female power, female entity. So the first duty, Swami says, is to reform the home and to run it along ideal lines. This is the duty of the woman that is given in the Shastra, because the home is the basic social institution everywhere in the world. When the home improves, the whole world will be better. So you can imagine what a responsibility that Shastra has thrown upon a woman. It is a great responsibility. And men, Swami says, goes on to say, men should realize the high status of women and honor and respect them accordingly. They should not make women weep and shed tears. A home where the woman shed tears will not be prosperous. So this is important, because it is said that when the woman is taken care of also in the home, then the devatas, the blessing of the devatas, the other gods, will be there for that household. So this is also an important thing that Swami has highlighted. Now, the other thing in that, that particular question, along with keeping the wife in an elevated position, the question came about Sita's test through the fire. Okay, we all know in the Ramayana, after she was rescued from Ravana, she was made to walk through the fire. Now, this is again, from our viewpoint, we see things. So Swami has very clearly said in his discourse, and this discourse was given in 1963, he gave the reason why this Sita had to go through this ordeal of fire. So first he said, this ideal can be put in a nutshell. the ideal of Sita and Rama marriage. Not once did Sita transgress Rama's command. Likewise, not once did Rama oppose Sita's wish. So without Sita's wish, that fire, she would not have walked through the fire. That is what he's just saying. This is ideal matrimony. You may have in mind the abandonment of Sita on the report of a washerman's words. Okay, that is also something which is questioned. Is it not possible that in the kingdom there may be others beside the washerman who entertain doubts about the chastity of virtuous Sita? So we have to see Rama's role as a king. He was ruling Ayodhya. He had to protect the kingdom, and he had to show that he was living dharma. He was dharmavan purushaha. He was the embodiment of dharma. And without Sita, again, we have to see, without Sita's approval, he would not have really done anything. Those were the words uttered by the washerman. So many others may have felt the same way. So the episode of Sita's ordeal by fire serves only to proclaim her chastity to the world. This is why Rama, they went through this ordeal through the fire, chastity to the world. Swami goes on to say, Rama knows everything. He's omniscient. He's an avatar. He will not do anything action without knowing the whole picture. And what is that picture? So in 1963, this discourse, Swami says the two purposes of Sita's fire ordeal. So Rama said that he wanted Sita to pass through the fire. So when Sita was about 10 yards away, Rama, who is butter when he melts and steel when he hardens, said, stop, I can accept you only when you pass through the fire. Lakshmana swooned at this thunderbolt, and the monkeys who had to bring the fuel for the fire bent under the weight of even the twigs, because it was a big thing for people to accept. But Swami says the fire ordeal served two purposes: to scorch the slanderous tongues which haunt the tracks of avatars at all times. This is number one, to scorch the slanderous tongues which haunt the tracks of avatars at all times. And what is the second reason? Second reason is a reason that we do not know. That is why we should trust Bhagavan. He knows past, present, future of everything. Sometimes the actions may not seem as per our vision of what should be done, but Rama, being avatar, knows what the second reason, the real Sita, what had happened, to retrieve from the fire the real Sita who had entered into it prior to abduction by Ravana. I don't know whether you've read the Rama story, but Sita's real self was taken before she was abducted by Ravana. If we go back to Ramayana, you can read that. And this is the reason why she was put through the fire ordeal again, to retrieve the real self, to retrieve her real self. See, we don't see this from the human point. Swami has said this in the discourse. This was the reason why she had to go through the fire ordeal. So again, what does it go to show? That from our limited vision, we cannot see the whole picture. Bhagavan knows the whole picture. He knows what he's doing. So we do not question his actions. We don't question. We accept. If we trust him as the Lord, we know he knows past, present, and future of every single thing on this planet, and he will do the best for each jiva. So I hope that answers that question. So we have another few more questions, and I hope I can get through. So the next question is, also, can we in general have a peaceful and blessed life without having to go through marriage and having children, especially for women, where we are brought up to believe that this is the goal of life and we have to live in society respectably, then we have to get married and have children, etc. So it is possible, definitely. Anything is possible in this world. So you can have a peaceful and blessed life without having going through marriage and having children. Now, it is more difficult, definitely. You may think it is very difficult to have a grihastha lifestyle, but it is easier to have emotional support of family members and to work within the family, to live a karma yoga lifestyle, to do one's duty. That is why Shastra always has this varnashrama system. These days, it is not, there very much, but it would start with brahmacharya ashrama, where the person studies for a length of time. Then you enter into grihastha or householder lifestyle. You get married, have children. And in fact, it is said in the Shastra, it is in that ashrama where one grows emotionally through all the blows and rubs with all the personalities that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. The kids, the husband, the in-laws, so many things come along with family life, right? Everybody has to deal with all these things. In fact, without that gives you the opportunity to grow physically, emotionally. That is what Shastra says. When you're in that particular phase of life, of householder life, you have the potential to grow. So that is one thing that is why it is not the goal of life. It is a way, it is a means to grow towards the goal of life. That ashrama of householder ashrama is a means to grow. Why? Because you learn to leave so many things to Ishvara, all the troubles with the kids, so many things that crop up in the householder lifestyle, job problems, health problems, and you have to help people around you. You learn to serve, you learn to extend yourself. At least charity begins at home, there's a saying. So you learn first to serve your household, learn to help people there. Then you extend yourself to society more. So it is a very good opportunity, the householder lifestyle, to grow. But at the same time, if one does not want to go through that ashrama, of course, there is opportunity to given that one can live independently, but it is more difficult to be alone. When we're young, we think, oh, it's fantastic. I don't have to go through, marriage. I don't have to go through having kids and everything. But you come to a certain age, usually a midlife crisis age, 40, when you realize, my God, I have no one. Who is there for me? What will happen to me when I get old? Those type of thoughts will start coming or may start coming. And for that, one has to have Ishvara. So it is possible to live a happy life. It is possible to have a blessed life, a peaceful life, but it is more difficult because you have to become more emotionally independent. You have to learn to rely on yourself more, or you have to depend on Ishvara. When you depend on Bhagavan, then you are able to do it. Otherwise, living life alone without a support system around you can be very tough. When you're young, it seems like it's possible, but as you get older, things will get more and more difficult. The body starts aging. When you start retiring, because even if you devote yourself to your career, there will come a time when your career also will end because you have to retire, you're forced to retire. Then you have to see, what will I do by myself? How will I cope by myself? And if you are prepare yourself throughout the life to live by yourself, emotionally dependent on yourself, then you can definitely have a peaceful, blessed life without going through householder lifestyle. So definitely, if you're tending towards a spiritual lifestyle, this type of life can help. So that is, I hope that has answered that. Now, the next question is just a general one. It doesn't concern women, but it's very interesting. Could you please give us some tips? Where is it? Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Could you please give us some tips, practical ways to be aware of and control our thoughts? And to keep our words, thoughts, and deeds in harmony. So this is a very important question, because this is one thing that everybody asks: how do we control our thoughts? So first of all, we don't use the word control, because you cannot control your thoughts. Control only comes when you have free will over your thoughts. And many times thoughts just come into our mind. We don't will the thoughts to come to our mind. We don't want negative thoughts to come to our mind, but thoughts come into our mind. So we cannot control something we have no free will involved over. That is number one thing. We can manage. There's a different word we use in Shastra. It is management of thoughts, not control of thoughts. What thoughts come, you can learn to manage the thoughts. So this thought management, Bhagavan talks about extensively in the Bhagavad Gita. Very beautiful chapter. If you ever study Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, he talks about these thoughts. If you think you are in trouble, Arjuna himself says to Krishna, he is in exactly the same boat. What does he say to Krishna? Chanchalam himanah Krishna pramati balavadridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram. Arjuna's words to Bhagwan Krishna, what does he say? This mind is so restless, O Lord. This mind is turbulent. This mind is strong and it's obstinate. It is so stubborn. It appears more difficult to control than the wind itself. He says that. He said, the wind is easier to control than my mind, Arjuna says. And what is Krishna's reply? He says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Asamshayam Mahabaho Manodur Nigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagena cha Grihyate. Krishna replies to Arjuna, oh, mighty Arjuna, son of Kunti, what you say is correct, but the mind, yes, what you say is correct. Mind is indeed very, very difficult to control, but it is possible, he says to Arjuna, through practice and detachment, through practice and objectivity, it can be managed. You can restrain your mind. It is difficult to restrain, but you can restrain your mind. So there is a possibility that you can be aware and manage your thoughts. How do we do that? So this is again, in that same chapter, he says, whenever the mind wanders off, whenever it's going off, and you find your thoughts drifting and going in a different pattern, negative pattern, you use your free will, like the horses, you bring your mind back to yourself. Atmaneva vashet, bring it under your mastery. So when the thought goes off in a direction you don't want it to go, suppose there's a negative thought that enters your mind. So Bhagavan says, don't go after the negative thought. You cannot avoid the negative thought, but when the negative thought comes, you say, no, I'm not going with you. I'm not going to follow you. That is how you keep practicing. He says, abhyasena vairagena. You keep saying, you are the observer of your thoughts. You are not the thought. That is number one rule here. You know your thoughts. You know what thoughts in your mind. You know the state of your mind. You know when you're moody. You know when you're disturbed. You know when you're happy. You know all of the states of your mind. So you can manage your thoughts in that way by saying, I'm not going with this thought. So this is what Bhagavan is saying. You have to practice it. Niyame tatitya. It's a constant. Abhyasa means constant repeated effort. You can never say, I can't do it. Today I could not do it. Yes, there may be many times you fall, but Bhagavan says it is possible to Arjuna. And if Bhagavan says it, then definitely it is a fact. It is possible. You keep bringing it back. The restless mind. So this is the practical tip of how to manage your mind. And this ability to bring your mind back from distractions and from other useless, harmful ways of thinking is practiced through at least 10 minutes of meditation a day. Meditation is fantastic to develop the space between you and your thoughts. So if you can sit even for 10 minutes a day, if you have time, just sit and just observe whatever thought comes in your mind. Observe the thoughts just coming and going in the mind. And that practice itself will give a lot of strength to be able to manage the thoughts that come in the mind. And during the day, when negative thinking comes, that 10 minutes of meditation practice in the morning will help you cope with the rest of the day. So it is not just limited to 10 minutes in the morning. It will help you cope with the rest of the day. So this is the practical tip with managing the thoughts, and keep the words, thoughts, and deeds in harmony. So whoever is joining my Monday evening classes, the next value that Bhagavan discusses in the Bhagavad Gita is exactly this value, to keep the thoughts, the words, and the actions in harmony. It is called Arjavam, the value that he discusses. So we will see that more in the Shastra class. But the main thing, again, the main thing that Shastra gives us, alert living. You have to be very alert to what thinking is there, alert to your speech, alert to your action, because we live very mechanical life. we are like programmed creatures. We react and we live mechanically. What the Bhagavad Gita and Shastra, the practices they recommend is that you are more alert to what you do, more you're aware of when you speak, you're aware what comes out of your mouth. When you act, you're aware of your actions. So you may be slower, slower, you may not things, but you are more deliberate in your thinking, you're deliberate in your speech, deliberate in your action. And when you bring this attitude of deliberation into your life, you will avoid a lot of conflicts. Just try it. You avoid so many conflicts by being deliberate in things that you do. So this is another thing that that is said in the Shastra. And the main teaching about, again, how do I manage the mind? How, we've said that, how do we, manage the thoughts in our mind? So this best way that the Bhagavad Gita and Swami also always talk about is this attitude of karma yoga. So everything you do is offered to the Lord, and everything you get in life is received as prasadam. So even the unpleasant, the very, very disturbing situations that you have to undergo, maybe you had a fight with somebody at work, or you had some argument with somebody at home, even that is taken as prasadam. You can take everything, how you accept prasada at the temple, when you something is given from the altar, you take this as prasadam. Yes, I have to go through this. My karma is getting burnt off. You should think that way. If somebody abuses you, somebody shouts at you, think, my karma is going, my karma is getting burnt off. It is actually something good that Bhagavan is doing. If we take that attitude of everything that happens in my life is for the best, that is a beautiful attitude to live life with. Whatever difficulties one has to face, if you have that, keep bringing in that thought, whatever Swami is doing is for my good, whatever is happening is for my best. And you keep bringing that in, you'll find that you're much more peaceful in life. You're able to take the challenges that you have to face. So that is about the mind management. Then we have, I'll just finish off. I think there's a couple more. Working full time and trying to juggle work, home, and time for allowing, for following and practicing the spiritual path. Sometimes it's a struggle. How can we balance them? I heard there is a mantra for people who are in a situation like that. Is it true? So working full time and trying to juggle work, home, and time for following and practicing spiritual path is sometimes a struggle. This is another question that people often have. It should not be a struggle if you understand what spiritual life really is. Spiritual life and worldly life are not separate. Why do we separate them? There is no separation. Every moment of your life is for spiritual growth. So when you see my work is for spiritual growth, when I go to work, I make my employment for spiritual growth alone. I make my family life for spiritual growth alone. I live every moment with Bhagwan's presence in my life. That is spiritual growth. I don't dichotomize, I don't separate worldly from spiritual. Shastra never does that actually. There is no worldly and spiritual, there's only spiritual. We are here spiritually for spiritual growth alone. So there's no worldly growth at all, okay? If there's worldly growth, it's material growth, growth of your bank balance. That is just a side, that's not the real growth. That growth of bank balance and all of that is not going to give you what you really want in life. That is, total happiness, complete happiness, which the Shastra says is with you already. So all of that is just on the side. It is just, how do you say, a bonus if you get that. So you can work full time and you don't have to do this juggling, because everything you can make spiritual. And how do we do that? Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalaheturbhu ma te sangostva karmani. He says here, karmanyevadhikaraste. Every action you do, you are entitled to act. You do the action. Ma phaleshu kadachana. Leave the result to me. Yes, you want this to happen, but leave the result to me, even at work. If suppose you have a big project or something at work, why not? Give it to Bhagwan. I'm doing this project for you. Yes, I want it to be successful. Nobody will do anything for failure. They will do it for success. So there's no harm in wishing for success. But what if it doesn't happen as you wish for it to happen? What if opposite happens? Then Bhagavan says, that is where you have to accept, I am the giver of the results of action. You are not in control, he says to Arjuna. You are not in charge. I am the one who gives you the results. Accept what is happening in your life as prasadam. However difficult it is my prasadam for you, my gift. Prasadam actually is translated many times as gift. We don't see a gift in something which is unpleasant, but in fact, the very unpleasant thing that could be happening to us could be a blessing in disguise in future. We don't know. He knows the plan. His plan is, for each life, is already there. By resisting Bhagavan's plan, you're creating sorrow for yourself. So this is how we say that we bring in every situation, we bring in Bhagavan's, Bhagavan, Ishvara in every situation. And how do we balance? There is a balance required. As I said, at least 10, 15 minutes in the morning. Nobody can say they have no time. No one can say, I have no time to sit 10 minutes in the morning, have a small altar. You don't need elaborate altar or anything. Light a lamp, spend some time with yourself and the Lord. Spend time just releasing whatever thoughts you have. You can write it out to him or talk to him. Definitely, he is listening. He knows that. Swami has many times acknowledged that whatever you say in the puja room, he has acknowledged in darshan itself or in interviews. So you know there is somebody listening. He may not physically be here with us, but you know that he is listening to you and he knows everything that you're going through. So spend that time, 10, 15 minutes with Lord every day. And the attitude, bring in the attitude. What is the attitude? Yat kritam, yat karishyami. It's a very famous verse in Sanskrit. Yat kritam, yat karishyami, tat sarvam na maya kritam, tvaya kritam tu phalabhuk, tvameva madhusudana. Whatever I have achieved and whatever I wish to achieve, I am not the doer of these. You, oh Madhusudana, you are the real doer. I am an instrument. You alone are the enjoyer of all the results. If I bring in this attitude that everything I do in life, I'm just instrumental in getting things done, then I will find I become more peaceful and I also grow spiritually. So then I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry about juggling and balancing spiritual and the worldly life in these two things, because they're not separate. So this is how the attitude, again, I make my life spiritual. Every moment of my life become spiritual. So the last question, I think, sometimes I feel I fail to guide my children to follow. I fail to guide my children to follow the spiritual path. They always say being a good person and helping in charity work is good enough. So this is something that I think all parents have to also acknowledge, that every child has its own karma to go through. We can only do our best. We can instill the values in the child. And you're very lucky, whoever has asked this question, that you have children who say it is being a good person and helping in charity is good enough. That is a wonderful attitude in life. You should be. There's no other attitude that will make people grow spiritually than this attitude. If you've brought up children like this, I would love to meet such children that believe in this these days, that being good person and helping in charity in work is good enough. Yes, we say it is good enough because we don't, spiritual path and everything is nothing but that. That is the biggest growth in life. When you are reaching out, dharma, it is called in our Shastra, it's one of the Purusharthas. When you volitionally, using your free will, you choose to live such a life of reaching out to others and being a good human being in society, nothing like it. And spiritual life will easily come to such a mind. Maybe not now, but what happens is that when you live such an ethical life, you grow. And the Shastra says a thought is created, a vritti arises in the mind. This vritti, the thought, arises what? Oh, I have to move, my life should become spiritual. I should, spend more time, meditating or doing things, some spiritual practices. And that thought will come very naturally. When the time is right, the thought comes. So you cannot force these thoughts on anybody. That is a main thing in the Shastra. Shastra says that each one has to grow into their own path. So we, as parents, we empower the children to live a value-filled life. We empower the children to contribute to society, to become good members of society. But the spiritual aspect is in Bhagwan's hands. We cannot convert somebody and make them spiritual. Being such ethical people will naturally convert them into spiritual life, one point in their life or other. So we should give the children the freedom to be what they are after a certain age, of course. Give people the freedom to be what they are. So that is that question. And I have one last question, lady, which won't take long. I believe in karma, she says. I believe in karma. My mother is 93 years old, living with my brother in Mauritius. She has struggled all her life since she became a widow at the age of 23. She is in constant pain and distress due to her medical conditions. Is there any special prayers I can follow or just leave it to Swami? So the prayer that is always said in the Shastra, the main prayer that is said in the Shastra is the Maha Mrityunjaya mantra. This Maha Mrityunjaya mantra, you may know it as Trembakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyamamritaat. Trembakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyamamritaat. This is the mantra that is recommended for any sick person, anyone passing on, or anyone terminally ill passing on. It is very good for, it may not save the life, it may not, cure them. Of course, it will give relief, but by regular chanting of this will definitely give them peace of mind. So that is very, very important. It does give a peace of mind if, the family get together and do a sankalpa, meaning they say, where we'll chant this for the mother, and this will give a lot of strength to her. Her body is 93 years old, which is a very difficult age. It is a long life. 93 to live is amazing. Must have lived a very ethical life to even reach such an age as well. So it is difficult. There must be a lot of things that she's going through. That is why I think even listening to the mantra for her will help her. So we always recommend Mahamrityunjaya, which means the great conqueror of death. The mantra, it actually means great conqueror of death. That mantra has great potency, especially when chanted in the Vedic way. As I have chanted, this is the exact, the swaras, with the intonations that I chant. This is the way that in the way that's recommended. So if whoever has asked the question, I can send to Bhavani ji, I can send the mantra chanting and I can send the basic meaning, and you can share with whoever asked the question if they want to learn it in this traditional chanting way. So that is this question. And there was one thing about, I think there was a mantra. Is there a mantra which, one of the questions, and I didn't answer that, a mantra for people who are struggling in the spiritual life and juggling work. We don't say there's any mantra. You cannot, just get out of life with mantras. The best thing is namasmarana. As Swami has always said, you can just keep chanting whatever you're doing. If you don't have to concentrate on something, then you can, any spare time you have, any break you have, Om Shri Sai Ram, Om Shri Sai Ram, Om Shri Sai Ram. Simple. Om Shri Sai Ram. Very easy to repeat. You don't need to worry about how to chant it, what to do. Just keep on chanting, doing namasmarana. It works wonders. It keeps the mind in track. And thinking about Bhagwan, that's another question that comes. how do I think about Bhagwan and do my job and everything? That is what a lot of people worry about. You cannot. So Shastra says you cannot, it doesn't believe in multitasking. You cannot do 50 things at once. Our Shastra says you can do one thing at one time. The mind can only have one thought at one time. So you cannot think of Bhagwan and do all your work as well. So you offer your work to Bhagwan, do your work to the best of your ability. Any gap you get in between your work, you do namasmarana. That is the best way to live your life. So with that, I think, and good timing as well, all the questions I have answered. If there are any, maybe Bhavani ji can, yeah.
Unmute.
Yeah, you have to unmute, I think.
Unmute. Bhavaneka, unmute. Bhavaneka, okay.
Yeah.
Nandana ji, you have done a lot of, you've just opened our eyes in so many ways. There's lots of ladies out there who have a lot of unanswered questions. Some of them are questions that some of them do suffer within themselves. And I think you've done a lot of open the eyes for them. And I cannot express how grateful, how thankful we are to have you here with us today. And the message of meditation, 10 minutes a day, will take the space between the thought and the mind, is a good message, because a lot of time we talk about meditation, but we forget about the thought and the mind together with that meditation. It is, you did say, it's the space that gives between the thought and the mind. That's excellent. And I don't, is there anybody else who got any burning questions for Nandana ji? Okay, I think
No,
it seems
no burning question. Good.
No burning questions. I'm sure if we could call you back on another day, on another sometime, to just uplift, because sometimes ladies find it very hard sometimes to ask questions in front of other people. We are quite shy people. And the second thing is that because it's Ladies' Day, do you want to sing a song?
Yeah, we can do a bhajan.
If you can sing a song, then the ladies can join up. Are you going to stay till the end, or do you have to go?
I have to go. I'll sing a bhajan and then take your leave. But yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you all for.
Thank you so much.
And we'll sing. What is today? Today's Thursday. Yeah. So I'll just sing. Manasa bhajare Guru Charanam. Manasa bhajare Guru Charanam. Manasa bhajare Guru Charanam. Manasa bhajare Guru Charanam. Dostara Baba Sagar Charanam. Dostara Baba Sagar Charanam. Dostara Baba Sagar Charanam. Dostara Baba Sagar Charanam. Guru Maharaj, Guru Jai Jai, Guru Maharaj, Guru Jai Jai, Sai Nath Sadguru Jai Jai, Sai Nath Sadguru Jai Jai. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Shivaya Namah Om. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Shivaya Namah Om. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Aruna Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Aruna Shiva. Om Karam Satya Sai Nata Guru Jai Jai. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Shivaya Namah Om. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Shivaya Namah Om. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Aruna Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Aruna Shiva. Omkaram Baba, Omkaram Baba, Omkaram Baba, Om Namo Baba, Omkaram Baba, Omkaram Baba, Omkaram Baba,